I call Mahesh Bindra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have come one full circle. The minister who is now interested to clean this mess is the one who created this mess in the first place. When Serco was invited to take over Mount Eden prison, I was personally affected. My career was affected because I was a custodial officer in the old Mount Eden prison, the only real jail in the country in those days. We took a lot of pride in our work, and we took a lot of pride in making a difference in people's lives, and we actually did that on the floor. We did not watch people on cameras and sit in a glass bowl to see prisoners fighting and do nothing about it. We actually went inside those yards whenever there was trouble, and because we were sure that our backs were being watched. The other reason was that we had something called staff to prisoner ratio there, sir. The staff to prisoner ratio in the corrections run jails are 3 officers to a maximum security prisoner. We only have one maximum security prison in the country now, which is Parimurumu. So 3 officers to one prisoner. That is the ratio for maximum security prisoners. 1 officer to 15 prisoners when it comes to the high security prisoners, and 1 officer to 30 prisoners when it comes to the minimum security prisoners, because they have been observed over a long period of time, and their classification has been processed in a way that their risk of assault, their risk of escape, and their risk of reoffending is minimal. So, Mr. Speaker, when Serco walked in, I walked out. I was encouraged to apply for a job with Serco, and I asked a few questions. And the questions were, is the staff to prisoner ratio going to be the same as corrections? And the answer was, actually, we are going to actually go for a dynamic rostering system. And what does that mean? That means you will not get the same staff to prisoner ratio. Your life will be put at risk. Your life will be endangered. There will be risk to your safety, your personal safety, because a certain company called Serco wants to make profits out of public money. So that was one question that was unanswered. The other question was, are my working conditions going to be the same? And I was told that Serco is an international company, a very reputable company. I came to know about the reputation or the lack of it later on. So I was told, yes, Serco is a very reputed company. Well, that reputation is shredded this morning, I believe. So I refused the job with Serco, and I chose to stay with corrections because at least I knew that my safety is not being compromised there. And so did some others, Mr. Speaker. We had some very proud. The other question I asked was, is there a lack of good prison managers in the country that you are importing foreigners to run our prisoners? Is there a lack of experienced, efficient, dedicated, committed prison officers in the country that you are going all over the world to recruit mercenary prison officers? And the answer that I got was that Serco is, again, a very reputed employer. Mr. Speaker, over here, I would like to make a special mention of one of the most experienced prison managers in the country, namely Matua Kelly Pohatuawa. He was the most experienced prison manager in the North Island when Serco took over Mount Eden. And he took a wise decision, just like myself. He chose to stay with corrections and not join Serco, in spite of all the lollies being shown there. The other name that comes to my mind is this then superintendent of Mount Eden Prison. The name is, Mr. Speaker, Deborah Bradley. She took a lot of pride in her job. She took a lot of pride in the work that she did. And when she walked into a prison yard, the prisoners respected her because she was a thorough professional. She was very fair, but very firm. She has a track record of rehabilitating a large number of prisoners, hardened criminals. So, Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of working with such bright people, such dedicated people, such proud New Zealanders. So, I walked out of the Serco deal and I chose to stay with corrections. I knew from the beginning that this day was coming. It is just sad that it has taken them 6 years or 5.5 years to get here. This should not have happened in the first place. Serco should never have come into our prisons.
That's right.
Serco should never have got that contract.
That's it.
One thing is for sure, that I'm not getting a job with Serco because of the way that we have been, taking shots at them. Me and my colleague, Kelvin Davis and David Clinton. Yes, and I don't want a job with them either. So Serco, coming back to Serco, they have a bad track record overseas. They have a worse track record over here in Mount Eden prison. Mr. Speaker, when the safety of prisoners is compromised, when the safety of staff is compromised, when there is no focus on rehabilitation of prisoners, there is focus only on profits, there's no way that company is going to succeed in our prisons. And there's no way our prisons are going to benefit from the so-called reputation and the so-called experience of such companies. We actually think that stopping here is not good enough. Not renewing the promise of not renewing Serco's contract in Mount Eden prison is not good enough. We want that Serco should go from this country altogether. We want that the Weary contract should also be gone next. Because whatever has happened in Mount Eden, nobody can guarantee that it's not going to happen in Weary. Because the staff ratio is the same as in Mount Eden. Just the other day, I had a phone call from an officer working in Weary, where he described an incident that a group of low security prisoners were walking from the medical center to their own units, unescorted. Why? Because of shortage of staff. Why is that shortage of staff? Because Serco wants to make profit on staff. So a particular prisoner was targeted by a high security prisoner from the other unit. He was beaten up badly and he had to be taken back to the medical center for further treatment. Later on, that prisoner was shifted to the hospital because of the seriousness of injuries. Now, what Serco does is that just to show the number of prisoners on medication lower, they convinced that prisoner to come back to the jail, to the corrections facility, so that the expense of the hospital could be minimized. So the safety of that prisoner was compromised, Mr. Speaker, and that's a worry. And there's also going to be, I will not be surprised if there are similar incidents taking place in Weary prison as they have taken place in Mount Eden. I think we should not take a chance and we should get rid of Serco altogether. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Amy Adams.
Mr. Speaker,